Father John, I travel around the country speaking about prayer and the spiritual life. Sometimes I do advanced surveys to groups that I go to just to try to get a feel for where everybody's at. And I've never done a survey where a good portion of the folks who are going to attend the talk don't, all the surveys indicate they struggle with dryness in prayer, meaning that they don't sense God's presence, or they're even just struggle getting through it. It's just not a pleasant experience. It's not something that they even look forward to, and they really don't know how to get out of that. So tell us a bit about what are the causes and ways that we can overcome these difficulties.
Yeah, dryness in prayer is definitely a common experience. And there can be two basic causes for dryness in prayer. It can be my fault, or it can be God's fault. If it's it can be my fault because I might be neglectful in my spiritual life. I might be lazy, I might be undisciplined. And so when I sit down to prayer, I'm just not in the mood, and I'm
not ready. I haven't done the preparation the night before.
Exactly. I'm not being disciplined. I'm not doing my part. That can be just simple neglect. It can also be my fault if I'm attached to some sin. If there's some moral issue in my life, something that God is asking me to change that I am not being generous with. If that's the case, then how am I going to spend time with the Lord talking face to face? Because I don't really want to listen to what He says.
Right.
And so I experience dryness. So we need to do an examination of conscience. We need to really be honest with ourselves. Is there something that God's asking me to give that I'm not giving?
And we might need help with that.
And
we might need a spiritual director to help explore. Maybe there are things that we're choosing or holding on to that are really distracting us from the Lord's voice.
Absolutely. Or some reading, good spiritual reading, talking, kind of going over the basics of our faith.
Right.
So that's our fault. If we're being neglectful or lazy, or if we're being, or if we have some attachment, some sin problem that's really affecting our connection with God. But it might be God's fault.
Right.
There are times in the spiritual life, and sometimes entire seasons, where God withdraws what we call consolation, where He doesn't withdraw His grace or His presence, but He withdraws the feeling of consolation. And why would He do that? Because He wants us to grow in our faith. He wants us to exercise our faith, our hope. He wants us to grow up a little bit. And sometimes He withdraws. But the funny thing is, whether it's my fault or God's fault that I'm experiencing dryness in prayer, the solution is the same. Yeah. Keep praying.
Keep showing up.
Keep showing up.
Yeah.
Persevere.
St. John of the Cross, regarding your second point about God wanting us to grow up, has one of the most beautiful analogies I've ever heard. So he asks the question, where is a baby in bliss, really? And the baby in bliss is feeding at his mother's breast. And he's comfortable, he's protected, he has warmth, he has nourishment. Now, if a mother loves that child, at some point she's going to set that baby down, because the baby's got to learn how to walk and how to crawl and do that sort of thing. What does it feel like for the baby in that instance? Well, it feels abandoned. It's going to cry and stomp its feet or whatever. But the mother's not left. She's still there. She just knows that there's a time to be weaned. There's a time to be comforted. There's a time for peace. There's a time to be weaned, which can be more difficult. Is that an apt analogy for those times when God brings about the dryness in prayer?
Yeah, weaning is what He's doing. He wants us to grow to spiritual maturity.
Right.
And there are times when He's got to kind of demand from us, that we learn some new lessons. And He's got to do that by detaching us from the gifts of consolation that He's given us, so that we can be more and more attached to the source of those gifts, which is Him, the Lord Himself.
To dig deeper in the spiritual life, to explore a little more about the better part, go to rcspiritualdirection.com. That's R as in Roman, C as in Catholic, spiritualdirection.com.